and welcome to The Diplomat. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un is to meet President Donald Trump for a second summit, seeking for an agreement on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Back in 1990s, Ukraine also denuclearized itself, and the country is regarded as one of the models for the North. Therefore, today on The Diplomat, we sit down with the Ukrainian Ambassador to Korea, Olexander Horin, to learn more about the country's peaceful and voluntary denuclearization process, and also the two countries' cooperation for President Moon Jae-in's new Northern policy. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So you started your post here in Korea from 2017. How has your life been in Korea?
Thank you one more time. And first of all, I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to congratulate everybody with the Lunar New Year. We came here in October 2017. And of course, day by day, it became more and more acceptable for us. Probably this posting of mine is the most difficult, challenging, and first of all, because of the language issue.
Right.
But I am trying to read, but my wife is learning Korean, and so we are trying to accommodate to the to life in Korea as much as possible. At least we are doing what Koreans do here. So like in the proverb, when in Rome, do what Romans do. We are doing the same.
So which issues have you been focusing on the most since you started your tenure here?
Unfortunately, there was a gap in representation here of Ukraine. And I have been given a number of the instructions in the capital, what to do and how to proceed. The most important for us was the information of the Korean government of what is going on in Ukraine and around Ukraine. You know that Ukraine is under aggression, and it is one of my main goals is to inform the public, to inform the government of the situation there. And of course, a number of the bilateral issues. The most interesting and important for us is granting Ukrainian citizens with visa-free regime of travels to Korea. Unfortunately, it is still under discussion, but we hope that, and it will continue to be in our focus for this year. And definitely it is economic relations, because we think that Ukraine is to somehow in the shadow of the Russian Federation here. So we think that the opportunities which Korean companies could get in Ukraine are immense. So I'm trying to meet with all the main players here, as well as the representatives of the medium and small businesses.
I see. Ambassador, as you know, the situation on the Korean Peninsula has been changed dramatically since you started your tenure here. And also, Chairman Kim Jong-un agreed to meet President Donald Trump at the end of February. What's your view on all the changes on the peninsula?
I think the changes which are taking place here is really very positive, not only for the region, but for all mankind. Because in reality, we are starting, or you have started to de-escalate the situation, which was one of the most dangerous from the military point of view in the world. That is why I think what's going on here is very important. And I would like to stress here, to underline here, that the credit should go not only to persons you have named, but also to your president, Moon Jae-in, who launched this initiative in 2017, and finally it brought positive results. I think this is a very serious and very precious contribution into the international peace and security, which Korean government and personally President of Korea is doing now.
Speaking of denuclearization, in 1991, Ukraine voluntarily denuclearized itself. How did it all come about?
Yes, and we are really proud that we have become first in the history of mankind who voluntarily decided to give up nuclear weapons. The number of nuclear missiles, nuclear warheads we have in possession was bigger than Chinese, British, and French taken together. So for us, it was a really very strong political move. And even now, when we've got into this situation with aggression from the part of one of the so-called guaranteeing states, we think that our move was right. At least it is my point of view. Because if you look at the Ukrainian society, at this moment there are a lot of discussions. Was it a right step or not? I'm sure it was right step.
Then did Chernobyl disaster in 1986 have any influence on the decision about the denuclearization, on your view?
You have asked me a very interesting question. And I would like to tell you, because there are different opinions. So my opinion is that, of course, Chernobyl disaster in 1986 influenced greatly the mentality of people. Because we were among the first, probably the first in the world who have experienced full-scale situation when a so-called peaceful atom went wild. So I was the deputy dean for foreign students in Kyiv University, so I remember these times very, very clearly. So it was really dangerous situation. So until the 10th of May, the issue of evacuation of a 2.5 million city was on agenda. So the situation was very. So that is why, of course, when the issue of denuclearization came to the front burner, many people say, look, the nuclear heads were not produced in Ukraine. They were not the result of the construction of Ukrainian engineers. And they have to be checked and maintained by the so-called manufacturer. And it has been produced in the territory of the Russian Federation. So it was decided that it will be much more safer to transfer these warheads to the territory of the other country, but in the framework of international program, which included first the material compensation for the elimination of nuclear weapons, and the second, which of course is the first, the assurances of the security of the state. And such document was signed in December 1994. So this year it will be, if I am correct, 25 years of this document. And this document was very clear in its content. It provided Ukraine with all necessary security assurances as far as territorial integrity, independence, sovereignty is concerned, as well as non-use of any kind of economic pressure and all other means of pressure on the state. So Ukraine was given guarantees, all kind of guarantees.
Ukraine is also considered a model for North Korea's denuclearization. What's your thought on that?
I think that there is no model for denuclearization. The issue of denuclearization should be resolved on case-by-case basis, taking into consideration local conditions as well as the whole world security and peace situation. So that is why, of course, you can look into Ukrainian experience, or the negotiators can look into Ukrainian experience. So they will find a lot of positive there. As well, they could find there some inconsistencies, which we find there. But there should be and couldn't be the general approach to these important issues.
I see. So now let's focus on the exchanges between Ukraine and Korea. The Moon Jae-in's administration's new northern policy tries to deepen its relations with Eurasia, and Ukraine is also a part of it. In that regard, what kind of potential does Ukraine have?
Ukraine is very important economic power in, first of all, in Europe. And Ukraine has diversified economy, agriculture, industry, and we are well known in the world, for example, as breadbasket of Europe. Even now, for example, the yield of crops this year was nearly 90 million tons, approximately 42 of which have been exported to the foreign countries. So you see that the potential is huge. And according to the experts, with the use of new technologies in agriculture, Ukraine can easily surpass 100 million ton benchmark in providing world with the grains and all this kind of cereals that is produced on the territory of Ukraine. I'm not speaking about other agricultural products. Ukraine has become #1 in the world in exporting sunflower oil, as well as some other sunflower products. So Ukrainian food processing is very attractive for investment, because unfortunately, even with such a good results in agriculture as Ukraine is showing now, quite a large part of the yield or crops of fruits, or they are not getting to the market. They're simply lost. So that is why the investments into this sphere of Ukrainian economy will benefit investor as well as Ukraine. Then industry, and Ukraine is among the countries which is producing the planes from zero to the flying models, and we are among very few rocket countries or missile countries in the world. So I think these are also very attractive and promising fields of Ukrainian economy, which shouldn't be overlooked by foreign investors, including the Korean ones.
As you mentioned, Ukraine is very well known for its aerospace powerhouse. Could you tell us more about that?
Ukraine and space, outer space, has a long-term relationship, historic relationship. So I'm a historian by education, so that is why I like to make different kind of allusions in history. So I will give you only one fact from history. Ukrainian scientist Kondratyuk, who died in Gulag in 30s, have calculated the route to the moon, which then was used by the Americans when they have prepared their flight to the moon in the 60s. So then the other example is that Soviet missile manufacturing has also have deep roots in Ukraine, and the Sputniks and rocket launchers have been produced by the designer bureau and the factory in Dnipropetrovsk. Now it is called Dnepr. So this enterprise and designer bureau still is a very active and participating actively in different projects. Then Ukraine is participating in Vega project by European Space Agency and providing some parts of the launchers to Vega project. Ukraine is providing the main part of the missile, which is launching satellites to the orbit. So it would consist in 2 phases, into 3 stages. We are open for cooperation, and we have cooperation with the Korean agency, and we are really proud that some parts produced in Ukraine are used in Korean launchers, and we hope that the next launch will be very successful. So your success will be our success.
Right. Besides the fields that we've already talked about, what kind of field do you see the greatest potential when it comes to cooperation between the the two countries?
We think that there are opportunities in the sphere of the nuclear power plant industry. You have very sophisticated and very effective models of nuclear power plants. Ukraine at this moment is one of the countries that is producing approximately 53-55% of electricity from the nuclear power. So we are among those who are, notwithstanding Chernobyl issue, you see, because we understand and unless, and it's my personal opinion, the nuclear energy is one of the safest in the world. The problem is not in the energy, the problem is in the humans who are dealing with it. So that is why, if you would like to deal with the CO2, with all these green issues, at one moment we will come back to the nuclear issue. Then food processing I've told you about. The building of this grain silos in Ukraine is very attractive business, for example. Simply to make the crops Ukraine is getting to be preserved and to bring into the market, which will be very, very interesting and positive for Ukraine and for any country which will decide to go ahead this way.
Could you share your plans to improve the bilateral relations between Ukraine and Korea?
I think that the time has come to go ahead and to continue the exchanges on the highest level. In December, we had a visit of our head of the parliament to Korea. I think it was very successful. At least the parties has agreed to go ahead and to further develop bilateral relations in all the spheres. There are no spheres which we are not ready to be engaged together with Korea, starting with humanitarian, ending with political, with economic, military technical, so forth, so on.
I see. Ambassador, last but not least, what do you think diplomat means in one word or one sentence?
I like a lot of definitions of diplomat, you see, from some very rude to the most exquisite one. But I think that diplomat is a person who is acting on the basis of three principles. It is decency, professionalism, and patriotism. So the diplomat is a person who is a communicator, negotiator, troubleshooter, and everything which deals with the representation of the state on the territory of other states. And of course, I couldn't but mention one of the most important missions of the diplomat is protection of rights of the citizens of the country which he is or she is representing. So these are the ABC of diplomacy, and all these functions and principles are they enshrined, if you like, in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations.
Ambassador, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today, and also thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to speak to you and to your team. And I would like also to congratulate you one more time with a very good and very long holiday, Lunar New Year. So my greetings and have good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
and visit you in Switzerland. So there are more than simply